Hey everyone, Josh here. I'm here with Josh and Max from Atomic Music, which is a local media entity focusing on, of all things, music around Albury Wodonga. And someone of my vintage, I actually haven't seen anyone even commit, even on a minor level, to anything like that for probably over a decade. And these two gentlemen are a fair bit younger than me. But so you just want to tell us a little bit about your interest maybe in music. We'll start there. And we can probably start with you, Josh, if you like, and then why you came together with Max and focused on music, which, being a former musician, it's very, very hard to get people to care about music in general, anything more than just background, and to do it on a purely local level. There's extra challenges there. So why did you bite off?
Ooh, that's a really good start.
Why did you bite that one off?
That's a really good start, actually, because initially when I was involved in my first taste of local music was a few years ago, in sort of like an ex sort of relationship stance. When I was brought to it, I actually hated it. I really hated it. I had a real negative vibe of the people initially, but that I found out later on that's just kind of the people I was around. And later on, I went to have a crack at radio. I was going to go to radio school. So radio is kind of a big passion of mine. And my parents were like, hey, go check out the community radio station. So I did some training through there. And my co-host at the time, another girl was going through the same process as me, and we kind of joined up. She was an she still does play local music. She's a local musician, and she really wanted to push independent, local, original music because she owned a music school at the time as well. This was about 2-ish years ago. And if I had things my way, I would have just played pop punk, post-hardcore. I'm a huge pop punk fan, and so that's all that would have been played. And she's like, nah, how about we mix them? And so we blended them together. The Mixed Lollybag show, which essentially was my original community show, and we got local artists on. We got a kick out of helping these local artists, interviewing them, giving them their first chance of being on radio. And then Max's show kind of come out of nowhere because there's not a lot of young people at the community radio station where I'm from 2REM in Albury. Yeah. There's like 5 of us that are under the age of like 40.
Yeah, I'll tell you my story about when I tried to get in there recently later.
All right. Sounds good. So when we were doing local music, we were the only ones who kind of, can we swear on here?
You can say whatever you want except fuck.
They gave a shit essentially about local music and community in a way. We were the only ones who gave a shit, and we really pushed hard for it. And then Max come along, and the countdown actually was started on a real, like a, what's the word? Like, I'm not going to say beta sounds really bad, but like
beta.
It was the beta version of the countdown. Essentially, kind of was a concept.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't know Max at the time at all.
I can still remember the first time we met.
Yeah. I said,
I can't say that about many people, to be honest.
I was like, what the hell do you? Well, I can't even remember what did I say exactly.
So it was at the Bended Elbow by the fireplace.
Oh, yes. I organised a meeting because I'm like, hang on, someone else is doing local music on our station. One, why haven't we heard about it? Why haven't these people like connected us? And two, it was kind of, two, I want to be involved. How can we do a better job at like collaborating? Because we can probably cross content stuff was pretty much it.
And it's all volunteer for anyone who's not familiar with what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The more bodies on deck, the better really when it comes to a show. So
yeah, and especially, consistency is key. So like if you're talking at a show about another show on another day, it just ties the station in a little bit better as well if you know what's going on. And yeah, there was always a lot of resistance to the music we were playing because it didn't fit right, essentially. But it's community, so we were always headbutting on what we were doing. But essentially, I met Max, my co-host at the time. She came along as well because she was right into independent music.
She was heavily pregnant that day.
Yes, yeah. So that's pretty much
just that day, Max.
Just that one day,
and a few after as well.
So, what time did that happen? I swear I saw you this morning, and that wasn't happening.
So I think that was about 12 months ago now, essentially. A bit over 12 months ago that happened was when I went and met Max. I asked about pretty much what are you guys doing? Wow. And then kind of when we found out the whole idea.
And I'd heard of you both as well. And the Mixed Lollybag.
It was
when I started doing my thing. To me, you guys were the competition. I was like, the competition.
I guess we've got a little bit of a feel as to where Josh is coming from. And you had someone else, obviously, that was pushing that local angle. How did you come to that local focus, Max? Were you in a band or were you just you had friends in bands, or did you just find some good music locally you thought didn't have enough people listening to it?
Yeah, tracing back to your original question about the interest in music, I actually started as a musician, so I've got a very different background to Josh.
Yeah, for sure. The old desert life days, mate.
Yeah, yeah, desert life. Check it out. Don't do that.
Do it. There's some great music videos.
We were stoned the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's most bands.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
But basically, what I did learn from that era is that as a musician, particularly one like here in Albury Wodonga, it's incredibly hard to get heard. Like there's no sort of channels. Well, I didn't even know about community radio back then. But even now as a presenter, like I know music gets sent into the station, but like Josh mentioned before about there being no sort of internal system that linked us up as, you know, the core young people.
And you had a similar musical focus too.
Right.
Sure.
So where is that linked to sort of get musicians that are vying for airtime to presenters who put on the rotation, you know?
Yeah, give a shit in a way too.
Well, yeah, we've really achieved that now, but that all came much later. I guess at the start it was more about learning how to work together, and that as a team we're more powerful than we are as solo actors. So
it was funny. I'll tell my story now about local community radio, but I have to preface it with the first time I ever did radio, and that was when I think I was 16, and I grew up in Corryong, and there's a community station up there. I think it gets broadcast from Corryong down the line to Wola, a little town on the river, and I think the transmitter might be there. Yeah. So I'm not even sure whether anyone in town
can actually hear it.
Next door at the bakery could have listened to the show we were making. I'm not certain how
that worked. Is it another narrowcast station?
I can't remember at the time how it worked. I know that Wola was part of the operation, and I had no talent. I was an R machine, basically a verbal typo, and all the bands we were playing, we shouldn't have been playing. We weren't keeping records for APRA at the time, which nothing could digitally log. It all had to be handwritten. And we had so much freedom. And besides the few people that didn't like Dimmy Borgir at the time, which is if you're not familiar, is a Norwegian black metal band, we got no complaints.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit of energy on the radio, because most of it was, country.
Yeah.
Most of it was country music presented by people that lost interest in country music 3 decades ago. So we had a bit of freshness, and we didn't swear as much over time as what we did on the first episode. We should have been gone after that.
Yeah.
Fast forward about 20 years almost. I can't remember when I went into 2REM. And the station's evolved from when I used to go in there as a musician. There's more people in there. It looks more professional. And I made the mistake, guys, and don't ever do this if you're in the industry. Don't ever tell people that you are technically minded. Because I walked in there after 10 years of being on podcasts. I've done 15 shows or something. I think 800 and something episodes by that point. And they said, "Oh, so you're an IT person? Yeah, we could probably use you." And I'm like,
"How many available hours do you have every week?"
Yeah,
we're after an engineer, mate.
Yeah, well, that ain't happening. So that was my most recent experience. So that was both a reality check and also it was a little bit deflating at the time. But it's good that they actually are making spot. I mean, I'm in my 30s, so I understand. For me to rock up there the first time at my age, they're like, "Well, you're taking." If we were to give you a spot, it could be someone who's coming up through the station at a much younger age, that's either still in bands or more connected, that could be playing music or whatever.
I find I don't even think that way at all. They're pretty happy to have bums on seats. I think.
Well, mine was going to be apparently some bum on the ground fixing a data rack somewhere, so that wasn't going to happen. Yeah. If I could make that noise, that's what I would have done. Yeah, so that's no reflection on them. They're running a tight 100%. Ship, and they thought, "Oh, well, he's got a skill. It's not really the skill he thinks he has." So
everyone is volunteers there, and it is so hard to get people to give up time of their day. I mean, what we do, even with Atomic, it's a part-time job, like essentially almost nearly full-time sometimes. We don't get paid for it. We just love it so much, and we can see the growth, and we can see artists getting the kick out of it. And, we have achieved like getting artists out of garage bands and out of their garage and out of playing acoustic guitars in their bedroom. And Pablo Pace is a big one.
Supporting Lime Cordial last weekend.
Yeah. For some time, and they've moved to Melbourne and they've charted in Triple J on Earth, and they were just a garage band. And in just over 12 months, they're opening for like Triple J bands.
They never really did good on the atomic charts, though.
No, they didn't.
which we might go to next. So we've mentioned it a few times now, the atomic charts. We might knuckle down on what the actual show is before we get too lost in.
Yeah, we could talk about radio
'cause you
all
guys-
day.
Yeah, and so could I. So we might get a bit. I've tried so hard. I've said two things, and one of them I think was to Seamus, and I also spoke to a 56-year radio veteran recently. His name's Paul Connick. Obviously, his voice sounded great because he's from back in the day when they had to do a lot of voice training.
Yeah.
But he did not say one one. All of his pacing was perfect. He didn't cough, he didn't splutter, and he basically didn't say anything untoward.
I wish I could be like that.
I just sat there and I only had to edit the bits that had me in it. That was great. So that's why I've gravitated to radio people, but I try not to make it a radio podcast because that just seems like
you're biased.
a little bit too meta too. Radio lovers talking about radio on a podcast. And kind of lame. So the Atomic Countdown, and just getting back to the music thing, music is not like I just like hearing my own voice in headphones. That's what my interest is now because I got all my music thrills by actually playing and writing and being in bands and stuff. Like with that focus to narrow it down just to the local stuff, did you ever think to yourself, are we going to run out of music? Is there enough actual good quality? Because obviously you want to produce a good show too. Not everybody who listens is going to be 100% obsessed with local music.
Yeah.
And how does that fit in with the catalogue? Like there's so much stuff, like you're trying to go very narrow, but that can actually make things a bit harder sometimes. So how did you face those challenges?
You'd be the best one to talk initially, man, because initially the countdown wasn't 20 songs because you couldn't get 20 songs.
Yeah, correct. You can correct me where I go wrong, but the first week would be the answer to your question is when we thought, do we have enough content to do this?
Yeah.
So the first week we had 15 songs because we could only find 15 songs. But by the second week we found another 4, and then we've never had to look back from there.
And that's actually, when you ask, will you run out? The whole process of if there's this support network constantly supporting where we'll invigorate an industry that people will actually be more willing to pump out.
Just knocking that one off the tee, mate.
Yeah.
Might have rolled that one out there. And you're really spanking that one out the door.
But essentially...
sorry, I'm just messing with you.
You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially... There was these musicians and artists that, they pump one thing out. The Retro Youth Cafe has pulled a lot of youth through there, and there's some great support networks down there that push. The youth coordinator down there, Joel, he's pushing youth, and he's a music background as well. So he's pushing these guys through. And when we got hold of the music, when we pump it and through our social media, the new magazine, it's out now too, like there's a whole industry around it. There's a support network around them. They generally go out and they'll record more stuff and then they'll send it to us because we charted. Sweet. We're like, it's a legitimate chart now. We were told that when Australia's Got Talent come through, they knew who we were. And that's weird. That is so weird.
Well, that is weird, yeah.
I find it weird that something that we volunteer to do and something, as you said, so niche, like, because most people would go, it's pretty niche. Why would I care, or why should we care? And there are so many people that we found out do, and we've got...
I think there's a certain appeal to it as well.
Yeah.
If you're anywhere in Australia and you want to know what's going on in some niche little location, how do you find out? Because as far as I know, there are no channels from like Mildura or wherever that kind of promote what culture they have there.
And I think the big one for us as well, like currently for a musician and like any musician locally, if you want to pick a local acoustic artist, all you can do is record, play some gigs. Potentially, if you're serious enough, you'll go tour, chuck it onto Triple J Unearthed. Fingers crossed that you're a little bit better than that kid from Melbourne who's doing the exact same thing. Fingers crossed you got the same sound that they're looking for, and that's it. But the charts were never biased to a sound. We've had metal bands take the top stop.
Hip-hop.
Yeah, hip-hop.
EDM now is starting to come in.
So let's talk about two things. Yeah. Is there an outer limit to where you're pulling this music from where you'll consider it for the chart? And how's the actual chart come together as far as the ranking factor? Because I'm assuming...
That's a big question.
Being two locals, and if you want the thing to have legitimacy long term, then you don't want to be seen to be
biased,
juicing the chart.
Yeah,
so let's start with, like, where could a band come from? Is it purely just Albury Wodonga, or is there an outer range? Or
so essentially,
Tim Godwin. Tim Godwin is he's from Sydney, and I think he's the first one we've had from Sydney. We've also had one more weekend from Melbourne, and they charted right before they
got signed to a European
cut
label.
a record deal, and they're huge now. But we, like, regardless of where these musicians come from, we're always the Albury Wodonga music charts.
So this is what's charting in Albury Wodonga. And I guess, we know Albury Wodonga bands. We chat to them all the time. So generally, they're on the boots ground getting the support of how to do it. To submit a track to the charts, we developed a whole website around it. It was essentially that an artist will go upload their MP3 or WAV file, name the track, and then we'll process it, put it on the website. And people can buy their tracks too as well off it, and the sales go towards it, the streams. It's almost like an Albury Wodonga localized Spotify, the music space. And the way we kind of tell artists is, do the Spotify, do the Apple Music, but try and do this as well, because you'll get on a chart.
It'll get you that sort of leap, your home base sort of leap.
Yeah,
pad.
Because I guess one of our core values is trying to make Albury Wodonga kind of like a Tamworthy for music, as like a cultural basis, and like good music comes out of here. And we want to try and change that. You have to go to Melbourne to succeed, or you have to go to Sydney, because when you're a smallish band with around that 800 like on Facebook, you're pretty big in terms of bands here in Albury. For original artists, we're talking exclusively original. We don't like cover bands. Cover bands, they've got their place, but original artistic content is something that's always struggled. I find
you're a 16,000 like band on Facebook, and you're a big deal.
Yeah,
and there's 100,000 people here in Albury Wodonga. So if the community could really get behind their scene, we could be producing national bands.
Yeah,
like clockwork here.
Yeah, and it's not, the talent is here. We've seen it, but the problem with some of the bands, if they've got if they don't feel like they got the home base and home support, they go to Melbourne, they're just another Melbourne indie band, or and they will get chewed up, spit out.
I think it's, I'm fascinated, not just with radio, but also with stand-up comedy. Yeah. And one of the things they talk about in stand-up is nearly everybody fails because they go to a market that's beyond them before they're ready. Yeah. And I know from back in the day,
it's a dream killer.
There wasn't, and there never has been, maybe until you guys came around doing the kind of initiative you're doing. It's been very hard to make anyone really genuinely care about your band around here. They might come because they're your mates, or they want to come because some pretty girls come watch you, or there's a myriad of reasons, but it's like, I reckon in the hundreds and hundreds of people, or thousands over time that came and saw my bands, I could probably name people I could say that is a true diehard fan of the music we were making that lived in Albury. I reckon there'd be less than 10 people.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's because there was nothing to make those people feel like they were part of anything.
Yeah.
Like they just sort of, we know them, they're actually good. But it didn't go any further than that.
Yeah.
So do you think if we make people feel a part of this industry that we're creating, that they will jump on board acts that come through and support them loyally?
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is that there was no test case for a band that had ever done it from around here. Like there was from Wangaratta in the folk scene, and there's been folk artists from here, and there's country artists.
I've heard that Seth Sentry is from Gindra.
Interesting.
I
haven't heard that.
I've heard lots of stories of like Lisa Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably an example of someone that has had a career, but I don't think that didn't start here. Her support level wasn't
here, yeah.
It hadn't maxed itself out here where she had genuine diehard fans right next door.
Yeah.
And that's what's hardest. And I don't know. And it's actually harder to make people. They just look like if you're the guy that serves them coffee 3 times a week and, they might see you pouring a beer on a Friday or picking up their plate at a restaurant, and then you're suddenly the guy in the band. There's only so much they feel like they get behind you.
Yeah.
This isn't Los Angeles where everyone's doing that. Yeah, I think you guys are doing the right thing though. Like the lack of support always made it feel hard.
Yeah, and you feel unappreciated too.
Yeah, which can really, I mean, if you're not getting any support here, there's nothing to make you feel like
you could do it.
You're being pushed to Melbourne, but you don't feel like you're good enough to be there. And the reality is you haven't really fostered enough of a show or an album or a catalogue of music to really
find your skill,
yeah. because there isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're definitely onto something. So to answer your question, you guys are basically the vanguard of something different. Not to put too much pressure on you.
It feels pioneering at sometimes.
Yeah.
We constantly question if we're doing the right thing or making the right decision. Because as I said, we've released a magazine very recently.
I wish there is a copy of. I saw that.
Got a couple here.
We'll talk about it, but
Yeah.
just in case we don't get there, because we're just as likely to go off and talk about something else. It did sell out, the first edition.
So we're up to our 4th edition.
Okay, sorry. Was it?
The red one was our 4th edition.
Was that the physical? That
Yeah, so we've got free digital copies because something we wanted to do was put all local music sort of news into one place. And people are stingy, people like free stuff, and we want to push it. So
it's kind of about building that thing too.
I'm just being
like
a bit of a dick, but yeah.
No, but you are right. People are stingy.
You get that that feeling that like when someone's, as you said, like making your coffee or selling your shirt or whatever, that they're just not that big shot. But then if you see them on the front cover of like a high gloss magazine, it's
completely different.
Yeah.
I think it also helps when people see artists and think that they're already part of something.
Yeah.
Like there's something going on there beyond and behind the artist that's bigger than just that band or that person you happen to know.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to be involved in that bubble. Yeah, not just go and watch my mate play a gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, let's talk about the magazine. I'm assuming you guys are both well-spoken and have done some radio, so putting the radio show together as a combination probably wasn't as hard, I would assume, as putting the magazine together.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, if we want to touch on in the end how the current format of the radio show.
Let's cover off that first. Yeah,
because we did win an award for the current format a couple of months ago. It was a National Community Radio Award, but originally it came from there was 3 people. We had. Well, it changed. The format changed. You were originally presenting at Max.
Yeah.
And then we had another member of Atomic who was on it as well. And then it kind of turned in, and I would join it because it was straight after my show, which is the more personal, nitty-gritty interviewing bands. So the countdown is essentially a top 20 commercial sounding charts, and we want to make it sound as commercial as possible in the latest format. But it kind of initially was like talkbacky, and it kind of didn't get to the point. And then we realized no one gives a shit about like us talking and what we think about it. Like, this is a countdown. We want this to be, sounding professional, sounding slick, like you would expect. Well, like I remember listening like 10 o'clock at Saturday night, the top 40 American charts that are blasting through.
Casey Kasem on a Sunday afternoon when I was a kid.
Yeah, right. Like
super slick compared to everything on Australian radio.
Like,
yeah,
exactly.
At the time, yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's when I think of a countdown, that's what I think of. And it adds legitimacy to these artists too, as well. And then it kind of, I think, I don't know, I can't remember why we decided to put me as the voice of it in the end.
You were the best.
I didn't want to say it, but no, but
said it for you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so I took the reins of it. Max is a great producer. He produced all his music. He scratched my back, I'll scratch his. Max produced all the Desert Life stuff. He's produced a lot of the audio stuff that comes out of Atomic. He's even recorded some of the artists that wouldn't have a chance to be able to, because recording a song professionally is expensive.
Yeah.
Especially with all the right equipment and home jobs, on your iPhone doesn't cut it for radio.
No, not unless you're doing really quantized metal sounds. You can make those in your house now. Yeah. But if you need a more open, natural sound, that's very hard to pull off at home.
Yeah, so Max has like worked with some slightly disadvantaged like hip hop artists as well, and those songs have like naturally made their way to the charts. Like people like they got around them, their friends got around them. Like, sweet, we got recorded. Here it is, and
they're great.
Yeah. So
on the merit of their talent, I just did it for free. Like I loved the tracks,
and that's one thing. And then the charts in its sense, I'll rattle off pretty much back and outs the movements of the charts, maybe talk about a little bit if they're featured in a magazine. And that was the charts. It was just slick produced commercial sounding charts. And when the opportunity came up to put it for a community radio award, I felt it had traction. I mean,
yeah,
we put some other stuff in from some other shows, but I didn't quite think it was as well done. And we went for best locally produced music show. There's a lot of categories like interviews and all that sort of stuff. And when we were announced as a finalist, we got told we were a finalist before the night. We come up against a breakfast and a drive time show, and I'm like, these aren't music shows. Like, how did these get, like, you know what I mean? Like, but apparently
I sound really cocky saying this, but I knew we'd won it then. Do you remember me telling you?
Yeah, I do remember.
There's
you
only
telling me.
like 3 things in my life that I was sure of. 2 of them were winning drawing competitions when I was like 6 and 8, because I'm a good drawer as well. But this one, I knew we had it in the bag. Same feeling.
I felt nervous because I felt the same, but also, yeah, it's a national radio award, you know? Like, I was expecting to come up with well-produced metal shows and like niche music shows. And I honestly thought we did a good job of what we did, but I didn't know how good everyone else would be either.
So, I mean, obviously it's a great thing, and I mean, it's great for not just you guys, but the area too. That, I mean, the show that's focused on the area is of such a high quality, but does it also show that there's, maybe you might not have realised until you heard the other finalists, maybe there's actually a lack of quality music-oriented programming on community radio at the moment? Because you would think that should be the haven of pure music shows.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and people who are passionate about one set genre, you would think the whole point of community radio is to foster those people and enhance, like, I don't know about, you know, Japanese heavy metal, but that guy loves it and he wants to do a show on it. He should be there because he loves it, so there's a niche there and he should do it. That's what community's all about, to me personally. But to come up against a generic breakfast show and a generic drive time show on community radio in a best locally produced music category blew us away first, but also the show wouldn't be as good as quality, as you said, without the artists that we brought to light. Yeah,
that's it. Well, so we've probably done enough radio chat now. I mean, congratulations on the award, and I'll link up to the article that I found. And
was that the one in the Border?
I've had a few people say to me, they pulled me aside and said, "Josh, you got this big fancy job. You can afford the $17 a month." I'm like,
for the digital download.
It stings me every month.
Do you have it?
Every time it hits my PayPal account, I think, just how much value do I get out of that?
Do you go oof?
I do. Yeah, but I wouldn't blink twice about buying a few papers. When I used to be in bands and I knew we were going to be in there, I'd buy 10 copies of it to give to people. So, yeah, I know it's probably silly.
I was tempted to read it. I was actually, because it's kind of...
Yeah, so I've got to find another way. That was what I was getting at. I've got to find somewhere else to link to...
Oh, yeah, so you can find it.
Yeah, so it's good that you guys are doing things, because hopefully when I talk to these artists, different local artists over the next whatever time...
Mate, if you need contacts, we got it.
Yeah, I'll have somewhere to link them to that doesn't cost people money, because I've had people say, I'm not going to click on any of that stuff. Why do you keep talking about links to the Border Mail?
Yeah, send them our way. We'd love it.
Yeah, okay, I will. I didn't realise it was such a sticking point. So.
Yeah, because when we write articles about, obviously we've got a magazine, so we write articles about them, but they generally end up on our website too for archivey purposes, essentially. And we do share them occasionally when it's in relevance to an artist releasing something. Yeah. So, okay. And that's where the music is as well for the charts.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So I'll just link to the guy's website for that stuff. So I've got a couple of things we might just check off quickly if there's anything.
Sweet.
Atomic TV, is that?
Yes.
Josh, that's your department.
That's me. All right. So Atomic TV is something that we kind of relaunched, I would say, when you met.
Recently, yeah. It's been there probably since...
the beginning.
Nearly the beginning.
But it was never really concentrated on, and there's not many of us that do, in terms of the group of Atomic. Max and I would have probably been the most invested time-wise. We got a graphic designer who does the magazine and does anything poster-related or logo, that's him, and he's an invaluable asset to what we do. Shout out to Tyson.
There's every aspiring artist of any kind, particularly musicians, is just wanting to jump through the through the podcast now and probably slap you for saying that, because that's everyone's dream.
What's that?
To have just a graphic art. How handy is it to have a graphic artist?
Oh, it is so handy. Do you mind if I drop his...
You can say whatever you like, as long as that person's happy.
Yeah, so Marcus Creative is where he's at. If you need a band logo
I think
poster,
I've met him before.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He does all of our stuff, and he's a
hardcore local music guy too, isn't he?
He loves metal. He's our metalhead too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you got to have that locally because it's kind of like our country music. So
that's it.
And so pretty much, and then there's been people that come and go, do some stuff here, do some stuff there. It's intense, having to keep up with what we do. It's not for everyone. and people have commitments, and we do it for nothing while we work and earn money too. So it is intense. It's pretty much a lifestyle choice. But yeah, Atomic TV was kind of long formish. We were having a chat about it beforehand. We just would do interviews with artists, like maybe 10, 12-minute videos at like events, and they'd get edited and brought down. But it was never, it kind of wasn't done well in terms of like, because we didn't have the resources. We don't have a filmographer. Any filmographers out there, you want to jump on board? But we had a photographer who tried to do film, and we had a crack with the very limited resources we had at it. But now
it's very resource heavy.
Yes.
Editing.
Yeah, and I think with audio's reached a point, and particularly in Australia, because our radio market's been so strong for so long, it has to be exceptional quality, or people just won't even turn it on.
Yeah.
With video, there's two types to me. There's the incredibly well produced stuff, and then it's kind of almost like film. There's the super budget stuff, and then there's the pure indie,
Sharknado,
super low budget guy on an iPhone running around, and it's all, it's just in the moment stuff. That whole middle ground, you don't want to have a half-produced show where it looked like you tried but you didn't pull it off.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that people hate more than that.
Yeah. That's something as well that we've had to work on. I have no experience in film editing, but I've had to upskill myself. I bought Adobe Premiere. And
that's another monthly bill that stings a bit. That
yes,
one.
it is. And I
use Audition for the podcast.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yes. It's Adobe. They bloody get you. But I reckon I spent 10 hours just to learn how to use basically just so we could pull this stuff off. And it's pretty much like really random. Like, not random in the sense of Atomic TV, but it's more, we brought it down to 3 minutes to be more social media friendly, because no one wants to sit there. No one will listen. The stats are there to show that no one will listen to a video or watch a video more than 4 minutes if it's not interesting. And we found that with some of our longer form. Like, we were talking to a country music artist, Jade Gibson. She's been to Nashville, come back, recorded in Nashville, come back, doing stuff around here. Big B&S artist, B&S ball artist. And people were tuning out after like that.
Is this on YouTube or Facebook?
This was a Facebook one.
Yeah.
And the 2-3 minute limit, that's kind of it. That's when you lose interest. And even our production wasn't quite there. We were told that because we never really wanted to push what we did in people's faces. We kind of wanted to do what we did, do it well. But then we realized we were told, you need your branding in there. People don't know who you are. What are you doing? And then it's like, oh, well, I guess it's not being up ourselves or to like put the brand in the corner of the screen. I don't know. It was just...
It's funny you say that. I've always been like that too, that I want the work to speak for itself.
Yeah.
And I've got a good friend. His name's Dan Caulfield. He's the singer of a bunch of bands. And
Diaphragm,
yeah. That's one of his many projects.
Yeah.
And he said to me, the people that don't like me are going to tune me out anyway.
Yeah.
But I'd rather annoy people a little bit and have them listen to the music and hope that they give me forgiveness because it's good.
Yeah.
Than not promote it and have no one listen to it. So I've actually been, for the first time, probably really ever in the last 12 months, actually putting stuff out there and trying to nudge people.
I dig the logo, by the way.
Yeah, actually, that was done by a local artist, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, to begin with, that actually got more feedback than the show itself. I had a lot of people, because I've done so many of them, say, oh, this is the new show. The artwork is so amazing. So I'm like, oh, well, if that made people listen, I'm happy with it.
Actually, that sounds like Atomic TV. They don't watch the show, but they go, man, that new logo intro you got's good.
Whatever gets them in.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever gets them in the door, you got to do it.
Yeah, so Atomic TV kind of turned into that shortwave.
Yeah. So before I forget, I saw a clip, and I don't know whether it was part of Atomic TV or something that was maybe slightly closer to it, something you did on after or before the radio show.
Yep.
But was it you guys that were dressed in high heels and had a foot race?
Ooh, that was the mixed lolly bag.
Yeah, because I must have been, because I was looking at everything all at once. So can you tell me a little bit about, is that the type of stuff that Atomic TV is going to do? Or is there any funny stuff? I mean, for the lack of a better term, funny stuff?
Look, it's very open. The mixed lolly bag was pretty much...
Because, I mean, when you're doing a countdown radio show, that's a tight format.
I think the mixed lolly bag was, which is what I do, they tie in terms of they share content.
It's very spontaneous.
Yeah, the mixed lolly bag was called the mixed lolly bag, so we can get local artists in, or we can get the comedian in, or we can get like and my co-host changed in recent times. Yeah. Her name's Mel, and she's really spontaneous with ideas, and it's so good to have someone constantly pumping out those idiots. But yeah, the Heels race was promoting Kinky Boots,
Yeah, okay.
essentially.
The musical.
The musical.
Okay.
I wouldn't rule it out for Atomic TV. Atomic TV is still in its infantile
Because
phases.
I do remember that. What made me remember was that I knew that there was an artistic tie-in. But
Yeah,
I couldn't quite on
pretty much.
spur of the moment remember what it was. But that is right. It was. So you could essentially, if you know you have that platform there and you have some level of skill that's building, is that something you're planning to do? Actually build campaigns around local artists
Yes.
in that way?
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
And it's something we've done in the past. In terms of attempted at the past, but we're not experts. We didn't go to uni to do this. I mean, I'm an electrician by trade, and I quit it to do radio.
Yeah.
So like, I'm out of my depth in a lot of the media stuff. Max is doing.
Can I just ask a question?
Musician.
My dad's an electrician, and once you become an actual electrician, it's probably the highest paying trade.
Yeah.
Did you get a slight number of eye rolls when you went into the radio?
So
You were going to be an electrician, and
Yeah.
now you're going to be in the radio.
yeah. So that was a
I
lot.
must have knew you were serious because it wasn't like you were, I was flipping burgers at Macca's. Now I'm going to try and talk on a mic here.
That dude that did Avatar, wasn't he an electrician, the lead actor? He was
I don't
just
know.
like,
Yeah.
fuck this, I'm going to go be an actor.
yeah, well, that's a,
You
that's
know
a,
they're serious.
that's a slight upgrade.
Yeah. Well, the electrician one, when I went through my apprenticeship, I was out of my trade for a year.
Okay, so you were fully qualified.
Yeah, I'm fully qualified. I've got my own ABN and that I do it on the side when, the radio, because I work in commercial radio too, in a background capacity. So I'm trying to work my way up there too. But obviously to do that, I can't work full time because then you can't say, yes, I'll come in and do that.
Yeah.
So that was a decision I had to make. But it's good because then I can do more of this as well, the Atomic side, and could put a lot more focus in that. So I got 2 part-time jobs essentially, except one doesn't pay. But it's really, really rewarding.
It pays in other ways.
Yeah, rewarding.
Yeah.
To give like young bands, like 18-year-old bands, the chance to be in the radio station, like to me and like for you, we can probably relate to this. This podcast is something, yeah, I do it all the time. I've done it for so many years. It's cool, whatever. Not whatever, but you know what I mean. And then it's like that for me. But then the smile on, these young bands' face, having their song played for the first time on a radio, having their first interview, and they're sitting there and they're like shaking, and you go, yeah, that's what you do it for. I do it for that. I do it, yeah.
That's awesome.
And then they give us backstage passes when they're
When they're famous, eventually. Hopefully we
That's
can
the
make
plan.
them.
Well, you're playing the real long game, Max.
yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was obviously the magazine itself, the actual physical edition.
Yeah.
How much is that going for people that are interested?
It's
And
$5.
$5.
And $2.90 postage delivered to your door.
Yeah.
So
That too.
that's sub 10. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
And how often is that?
That's a monthly thing. And I think any more than like maybe eventually it could come down less, but with the kind of team we have that constantly works on it, a monthly can sometimes, when it gets close to deadline time, it's a stressful time.
We'd be pushing the limits for content too.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Monthly is good.
like quality content too. As I said, there's Max and I work on it a lot. We write a lot of the content. We might flick off an article here and there to someone else, but it's a trust thing too, because you got to know that they got to write it properly, or do we have to do heavy editing on it later?
I'm going to say probably most likely if you're not doing it yourself.
Sometimes yes, but
Yeah.
It's kind of just captures everything that we do anyway, though. Like,
yeah, we comment on a lot of stuff we do in it.
we're so active every month, and then we just pen that down and
Yep.
package it up and ship it off.
Okay,
sort
so
of.
when it comes to the editing, I think that's yourself, Max, that's doing most of the.
I'm the editor, but it's become a more or less a group activity.
Okay,
we just
right.
throw it up on the board.
And that way we're all responsible too, because there's nothing worse than, again, we don't get paid for this. We're all volunteers. If someone's responsible for editing it and you go, oh man, you cock that up. It's not like that. We try and pull that away for it. If it's a group, we're all there in the room going, that's spelt wrong. There's a double space here, and then it's a group thing. And when it comes out, we own it together.
And then when that Pepsi logo showed up on the front cover, and we were all like, nobody saw that.
Yeah, okay, very
Own it
good.
together.
Well, that sounds good. Righto, guys. Well, I'm sure that there'll be more to talk about in the future,
Yeah.
and we'll probably start winding it up. What do you guys? We usually I've kind of miffed my own show flow here a little bit. we normally start at what you're most excited about right now, and then we go back. But now we're going to do that at the end today.
The most excited.
So is there an artist? Is there a thing? It could be your product, but generally it's something external. Is there a particular song
that's coming up
that you don't think you would have discovered without the show that you actually really think's fantastic?
There is a lot of tracks.
I'll volunteer an idea. So we have a certification system, like platinum, silver, gold
records. Yeah.
So we've developed an atomic version, which is radium, plutonium, and uranium.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Certification.
And that's for hitting certain milestones on our website. So an artist is feverishly close to 100 downloads. So I'm not going to spoil the artist, but one of them's really close to 100 downloads. And so we've had to go create the award now because we talked about it. It was 100, 500, 1,000 downloads. And that's what the charts are aimed off that too. And
can I just implore you guys not to give the winner a small scale model of Chernobyl? Just don't do it.
I'm watching that at the moment.
Yeah, whatever you do, just don't do that. Yeah, righto, fellas. Thank you.
No worries.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Josh.
Oh, yeah, punchingsideways.com for the website.